Throwing knives are as much a staple in video games as they are in action movies. You want to create a badass character? Give them a throwing knife. They are silent, always at the ready, don't need ammo, and depending on the game, they can even double up as a versatile tool. The first occurrence of throwing knives in a video game can be found in Ninja Princess, a run-and-gun arcade game that was released back in 1985. In this game, shuriken and throwing knives are the only way to get through the game, and as such, they obliterate basically everything. Medieval uses them as starter weapons for Sir Daniel, Dark Souls uses them as tactical items for minor damage and to lure single enemies away from a group, and in Hunt Showdown the little metal bars are used as a tool to silently remove mobs from the map that could betray your position. And by video game standards, Hunt Showdown seems to be the most realistic rendition of throwing knives. So far. You only have 6 of them at your disposal, so the number of throws is limited, but because they're sturdy you can pick them back up. The knives are also affected by gravity, so you would have to take the distance between the target and yourself into account and anticipate the falling arc. And of course, the damage output isn't bad either. You just need a single blow to the head to incapacitate a target. Everything else just pisses it off. But I want to know how much truth there is to all of this. So specifically 2 things are bothering me quite a bit. First of all, I think it's time to ask the question how deadly throwing knives really are, since every game uses them for something else, and every game gives them a kind of different damage output every time. In the Metro series, for example, throwing knives are absolutely OP. It doesn't matter what you hit as long as you hit. The thing dies. And I don't think we need to talk about movies here, because whenever a protagonist gets his or her hands on a throwing knife, it's usually game over for everyone else. Or you know what, maybe not. We'll see. The second question I have revolves around usability. How much time do you need to become at least adept at throwing these metal sticks? I was under the assumption that I could at least understand the basics in 5 minutes. After all, Hollywood and video games make it look so easy. Just extend your arm and let the magic of transition do the rest for you and the target will... Yeah, actually no. And I can say this with confidence because I made the self-test. I bought my first set of throwing knives, and from another friend I got a pole which I buried in my parents' garden for target practice. Then, when I was good enough, the next step of the plan would be to see if I can split this boar head I bought in 2 with a good throw. But here's the thing, we need to get to that later because as you can see I had a different problem to take care of first. I did not know how to throw knives. None of my practice throws would stick to the pole, no matter how hard I tried, and after nearly hitting myself with the ricochet, I started to wonder what I did wrong. Yeah, turns out in reality you need quite a bit of practice and knowledge. For example, I didn't know that different throwing techniques exist for these at all. Here is where I found Adam Saladin, 4-time world champion at throwing knives and all-around mad lad. It's amazing how some videos on YouTube can open your eyes if you just find the right ones. I watched everything he has to offer and here's what I learned. There are basically 3 throwing techniques. We can differentiate between the full spin, the half spin, and the no spin. Full spin and half spin are the techniques you see in Hollywood movies, with one of the most prominent examples being the fight scene in V for Vendetta. Both techniques make the knife spin in the air, but there's a difference between the 2 methods. See, half spin means you grab the blade and then you throw. At the point of release, the tip will point to you, and in the moment of impact, the knife performed one last half spin so that it sinks into the target. Full spin means that you throw the handle first, with tip in front. At the moment of impact, the knife rotated around 360 degrees at least once, and then it hits. And no spin means exactly what it sounds like. You just throw the damn thing in a hopefully straight line. Here's a demonstration. So, next question. Why do different throwing techniques exist? Well, that's because humans invented kunais, shurikens, the throwing knife as you know it, chakrams, kapingas and tomahawks and many more. And each of them is a specialized tool for specialized purposes. Let's start with the tomahawk as an example. It's true, you can throw these balanced axes. But no Native American hunter worth his salt would ever do that in a real combat situation. The reason being is that you could simply miss and now your enemy has a very sharp and very deadly weapon. So as cool as this scene right here is, sorry, that's unlikely to happen. In fact, the tomahawk seems to be more of a multi-purpose tool than an instrument of war. Even though it is balanced, the tomahawk is still an axe and as such was used by the Native Americans for cutting, chopping, skinning, and of course, hunting. And hunting was the only time when a guy would throw the weapon, to slay a small to medium-sized animal before it could run away. Some Native American tribes even held ceremonial services with these weapons, like declaring that a feud is over. And this is where the saying, "bury the hatchet" comes from. You're welcome. But if thrown, you would definitely use the full spin technique, because grabbing an axe at the blade makes no sense in any scenario, and just lunging the thing like a spear is also stupid because an axe isn't aerodynamic. But the chakram, on the other hand, was made for war, and only for war. This light metal ring was a popular accessory for the Indian army back in the 1500s. The weight and shape allowed the weapon to be thrown over long distances, and its sharpened blade inflicted nasty wounds. But it could also be used as a defensive headpiece on a turban. There, it was able to block and deflect incoming blows to the head that would otherwise be fatal. The cool thing about it is it looks like a frisbee and it behaves like a frisbee. You can throw it sideways, vertically, but in order to reach their full destructive potential, you would still need to give them a spin. Now, the most popular throwing weapon to date is of course the Shuriken, followed closely by the kunai. But against popular belief, those were not for killing. These weapons were used by ninjas as hidden weapons, but in order to hide something effectively, it also needs to be as small and lightweight as possible. And that meant that the purpose of these weapons was not to kill, but to distract opponents, to attack their weak spots, and last but not least, buy time for a getaway. And it's true, with a little poison or dirt on the blade, this little trinket can still kill you. But not instantly as every type of media wants you to believe. And you might have guessed it already, kunai are usually thrown with no spin at all. Okay, so what about shurikens? How do you throw these? Two types of shuriken exist. The bow shuriken is basically a sharpened stick. It would make sense to use no spin since they resemble little spears you can hold in your hand. And the hero shuriken, aka the ninja star, can be thrown however you want since it possesses so many edges that it will stick, no matter what you do. So I've got two types of throwing knives here, the bow shuriken and the standard throwing knife. And figuring out how to throw these effectively took some time, but I eventually got the hang of it. Just as instructed, the shuriken only work with no spin. And for my knives, I actually had to test out when to use full spin and when to use half spin. Basically, whenever I take a step backwards, I have to switch between the two techniques. Otherwise, I make a perfect hit, but I hit the pole with the handle. Now, this little segment should make it clear that throwing knives are actually not as effective as video games make them out to be. In order to land a killing blow, you would have to have the right gear and the training to effectively use that gear. So as much as I love Hunt Showdown and its mostly realistic take on throwing knives, I have to call BS on the fact that you can just throw your knives in full spin mode every time and land a perfect hit that sticks. But I wanted to find at least one realistic depiction of throwing knives in either video games or movies, and guess what? I found one. In John Wick Parabellum. There's a scene in an antique shop where everybody starts throwing knives. Some of them are intended for this purpose and some of them are not. Now let's have a count. How many knives were thrown throughout the whole scene? One dude comes in, gets the first knife in the shoulder, no confirmed kill. The dude throws the knife back, misses. John retaliates, one more hit, but no kill. And then the knives fly all around, 12 to be exact, but the only real damage is made by friendly fire. 2 hits, 15 knives in total. But then the scene shifts in tone. Thanks to the friendly fire, John has a moment to catch his breath and changes his strategy. Now he's using the knives to attack weak spots and buy time, which he uses to get more knives. And he keeps that strategy up until he is able to land a killing blow on each of his assailants. 12 knives again, which brings us to a total of 27 knives thrown. Now, 3 things are very important and actually very, very real. 1, as already mentioned, John attacks weak spots with the knives whenever he can. 2, John is never more than approximately 4 meters away from his targets, and at the time of the takedown he is right above the assassins, so very, very close. And 3, most of the knives still miss or don't kill outright. Only 2 of them do because they land point blank in the head. And with that new information I had to rephrase my question. Is it possible to instantly take somebody down with a well-thrown blow to the head? I am not talking about bleeding out, which is a scenario that can occur by attacking the weak spots. No, I am talking about boom, dead. And now it's finally time to bring out the big guns. I already mentioned I got out and bought a boar skull from a local hunter. Yes, the thing is real, and for the sake of the video I will destroy it and measure the impact my throws will have. And because I practiced a lot and now know how to throw knives, I am very confident that I can pull this off. First up, my bow shuriken. They don't weigh a lot, but I am fairly certain that they will at least do some damage to the head. Let's see. That's a direct hit into the forehead, and as you can see, it penetrated the skull. Removing the stick reveals a small hole in the skull. This is definitely a wound that needs to be addressed, but it shouldn't be deadly. Now, what about some actual throwing knives? Each of them weighs about 300 grams, so their mass alone should be able to do at least some damage. That was the perfect hit in the snout, which is the absolute wrong location because you can't see anything in the second camera.
Right through the nose.
Now the second throw hit right into the forehead and it left a very impressive incision. Now here's something I didn't expect at all. The third throw was a complete miss. I hit with the handle, but the handle alone still broke the skull. The fourth throw was perfect, but again a little bit too low, right into the base of the snout. But this time you can see the damage, it split the head almost in two. I was surprised by myself here. I hit the same spot I hit with knife number 2, and I am absolutely sure that this throw was deadly. I'll just let the picture speak for itself. Since we're here, let's obliterate the thing. How much damage does an axe do? That is exactly what I thought. One clean hit with the blade shattered the skull into pieces. There's no recovering from that. So in conclusion, yes, you actually can kill somebody with a well-thrown knife, but the conditions for such a throw have to be ideal, which, quite frankly, they never are. First of all, I knew when to use which throwing technique because I laid out little sticks in practice for exactly these distances. Second, I was never further away than 4 meters tops. And most importantly, this experiment was conducted against a stationary target. So yes, taking down a person is possible, but in an actual real-life situation, rather unlikely. And that's it for this video, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching, and if you like what you saw, then you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, tell your friends. As for me, I am already working on the next video. Until then, see ya.